I'm here in the lovely Julian, California area on my way over to Palomar's Nate Harrison grade, which is a fairly simple, unpaved for the most part road. It's a lot of fun. Typically when I've done it on the GS, it's very doable on the GS, but there are a couple of really tight turns that are harder on a 700-pound bike and so on and so forth. So I'm going to take the KTM up. I suspect it will be easier, maybe faster. I haven't been able to ride for about a week because it's been just insanely hot here in Southern California. Temperatures in the hundreds for a lot of the areas, and high 90s where I was specifically, and anywhere I wanted to go. So I've been jonesing to ride super, super hard. The fun thing about living near Julian is that all the roads to get anywhere are like this. They're super, super fun. Definitely still getting used to the KTM. Before I left, I aired down the tires. They were at about 32 front and rear. I took them down to 20. A friend of mine advises even lower than that, but I don't have rim locks, and these are tube tires. I don't know how safe it is to air down that much without rim locks. One of the nice things about that, in addition to hopefully better off-pavement handling, is this was an unexpected side effect. I got about a half an inch more foot on the ground, so I can get both balls of my feet down now as opposed to just the tiniest tippy toes. So that's pretty awesome. I mean, it makes sense logically to air down and have increased or reduced seat height, but I didn't think it'd make that big of a difference. So a lot of my friends get after me because I do shit like this. I go out off-road by myself. I don't do the really challenging stuff alone. I'm not a complete idiot. But I'm also just not a fearful person, generally speaking. I like to get out there and do what I want to do. And, not everybody's available to go play all the time. So I tend to just go and do. And sometimes it's ill-advised. I suspect I could get myself in a lot of trouble. But whenever I go off-road, especially alone, I always make sure I have my spot tracker with me, which is a satellite service-based personal tracking beacon. And there are two sort of panic buttons you can hit. One is for, I screwed up and I'm not hurt, but I need help. And you can set that up to go to a predefined list of contacts. The other one is, I screwed up, I'm really hurt or completely incapacitated, please send search and rescue for me. I hope I don't ever have to use either of them, but it's good to have. I ordered a seat concept seat for the KTM a while back, and they were saying it would take 4 to 6 weeks to ship. But I just ordered it last week, and I got a message yesterday that it had shipped already, so I'm super excited about that. When it gets here, I expect the bike will still be too tall. It might even be a little taller than the stock saddle. So there's a guy here named Abe, who everybody recommends very highly as somebody who will cut down a saddle and do a real nice job of it. So I'm hoping that will also help. It's very difficult not being able to get both feet on the ground on a motorcycle firmly. With a bike this light, it's less terrifying than on the GS. And on the GS, I can actually get both my feet down now with the low seat on. But I've dropped this KTM twice now, and almost dropped it a couple of other times, just because trying to get the kickstand up or down on slippery, uneven surfaces it can be really hard. Also, coming to a quick emergency stop, or just suddenly needing to get my foot on the ground for whatever reason is difficult at best. I have to really plan out where I'm going to stop ahead of time, and that's just not always possible. So, super looking forward to more secure footing on the ground. I did have lowering links installed that gave me an extra 1.5 inches. And I have about an extra inch of sole on these boots. I bought these boots and had them altered by a cobbler back in, I want to say like 99, when I was riding a K1100 RS that I was having a hard time getting my feet down on. Or so I thought then. It's kind of laughable now. I mean, I could get the balls of my feet down on both sides, so it's like, whatever. But I'm really glad I kept these boots, because they're still, even though they have probably 200,000 miles on them, they look like shit. But they're still very serviceable, and I would not have been able to buy this bike without them, because when I went to test ride the bike, they obviously were not going to lower it before I test rode it, so they put me on a stock KTM 690 Enduro R, and holy crap, that was absolutely harrowing, because only the scantest tips of my toes, like, I looked like I was a ballerina on both sides. And even if I, kind of shifted my butt off to the left, I could only get the ball of my foot down then. Unless I wanted to get my ass totally off the saddle, which I didn't really want to do. That was a really terrifying test ride, and the dealership I bought from is located in a very weird part of San Diego. It's one of those you can't get there from here type places once you leave. So I was trying to find my way back, and I found myself on these incredibly steep hills where I had to stop at stoplights, and every time I'm thinking, fuck, I'm going to have to buy this bike too, son of a bitch. But fortunately all was well. Managed not to drop it. And I'm really enjoying the KTM thus far, but I know that there's a lot more to unlock here. I'm still very beginner on dirt. I've been off-road maybe 18 times, less than 20 probably, but I really enjoy it, and I want to do it, and I want to be a badass doing it. I don't want to be, quote-unquote the chick, or quote-unquote the noob forever. I don't want people to have to stop and wait for me every 15 minutes to make sure I'm not dead when I'm out with a group. So I have a lot of practice to do. My boyfriend, to whom I will affectionately refer to as the cowboy, he's an exceptionally skilled off-road rider, and pavement rider too. He's one of the best I've ever seen. He has a lot to teach me. He already has, but we've had very limited time riding together. We've only been dating for maybe 4 or 5 months now. So, and our schedules have just conflicted terribly. But now, he's in a much better place in terms of time and schedule. So that should change, and we're actually planning some really cool trips in the coming future, and I can't wait to do that. There's going to be a business associated with some of it, and it's all really exciting. So look for cool stuff to come in the future, hopefully by the winter. One of the big differences, apart from everything else, between the KTM and the GS is there's virtually no engine braking on this thumper. With the GS, especially in dynamic mode, if you let off the power while you're in gear, that engine braking is smooth, solid, and really predictable. It prevents you from getting yourself into all kinds of trouble potentially. Just really handy. But in this bike, so I'm right now I'm going 60 miles an hour in 5th gear. There's a 6th gear. If I let off the throttle completely, I mean, it's there, but it's not aggressive. It's just kind of happens. If I do it in 6th gear at 60 miles an hour, it's a little better than not being in gear. I'd kind of forgotten how long it's going to take me to get over to Nate Harrison, and I did not put in earplugs. I typically don't have earplugs in when I go off-road, but I'm one of those people that always wears earplugs every other time on the road, because I've lost so much hearing over the decades, from motorcycles and concerts and working in a bar, going to dance clubs, all kinds of shit. I have permanent ringing in my ears, and I'll have that forever, which really sucks. I'll never know what silence sounds like again. I can kind of vaguely remember it 20 some odd years ago. God, 30 years ago now. Holy crap. So to me, like 1990 feels like 10 years ago. That's where I am mentally. And it's 2018. Yeah, definitely regretting no earplugs right now. I think I'm going to pull over and do that here. If there's a turnout nearby, which there has to be, like Henshot's right there. There we go. That's not going to work. With the lowering links on there, the left side of the bike has to be significantly lower than the right side in order for the kickstand to work. Try this. That's better. At least it's got a lean angle. All right, I'll be back in just a second. So at 5'7", with a 31-inch inseam, I'm definitely not a short rider. But I'm a lot shorter than dirt bikes. Most dirt bikes were designed for, at least ones that aren't specifically marketed for kids. And it's funny, most men and tall women never have to worry about, I can't get my foot down, and they might not fully understand unless they have somebody in their life that is shorter and riding, what a confidence killer that is, Every time you stop the bike, am I going to drop it? Every time the rear end starts fishing around off-road, am I going to drop it because I can't get a foot down in time to save it? It's disconcerting, and especially for less experienced riders, and for me being less experienced off-road, it makes the learning curve a bit steeper. It's so pretty here. I'm definitely going to look into replacing the Cena 10C video camera communicator thing as soon as I possibly can, because it is balls. It is so bad. The mounting angle is completely bizarre. There's no way to preview the video like on your phone or on a screen on the device. You have no idea what you're taping until you take the card out, download it, or load it up on your computer and preview it there. And I find that exceptionally irritating. Like, this is just not okay. It was cheap. I got it used for $125 on eBay, so it's not a huge loss of money, and it is working for me in the meantime. But I've lost. I spent an hour the other day. I don't remember where I was even, but I was doing this whole commentary on social media and how exhausting it can be to try and develop a social media brand and then keep up with it. And I'll go back and do it again. But the whole time, the fucking camera was pointed at the sky, basically. Like, you could see a tiny fraction of the road, and then just your trees and sky, pretty much. And so I've got to throw it all away. It's unusable footage, which is always a risk, when you do this stuff. Like, your voice won't record, or the video will be fucked up. But it is what it is. But the Cena 10C is it's a god-awful, poorly designed system, and I'm very glad that they stopped making it. I definitely need to research what I want to replace it with. The GoPro solutions, I have two GoPros. I have the GoPro Hero 4 Black, which is a spectacular little unit, and I have the GoPro 5, which is less spectacular but still serviceable. But the microphone options for that are somewhat limited and strange, and they obviously don't have, like the Sena's built-in communication technology for music or taking phone calls and, so on and so forth, music, intercomming. So ideally, in a perfect world, what I would like is, a camera that I can have be that communication system, and still be a good camera. And I don't know if I'm asking for too much or what, but there's a lot of investigating that needs to be done, because I've got a lot of big plans for this motorcycle playground thing, and then also for the businesses that we're going to be getting going here. So if you have any recommendations or suggestions for a system like that you're happy with, or even one that you're unhappy with, so I know not to buy it, that would be most appreciated in the comments. One of the fun things about going up Nate Harrison Grade is that when you're done with it, you're at the top of Palomar Mountain. And you can go down in, one of several ways. You can turn around and go back down Nate Harrison, which is not what I want to do, because downhill off-road are not my favorite roads. There's a lot more to think about. Gravity's working against you, sort of. But then there's also East Grade and South Grade. And East Grade is one of my favorite roads of all time, up or down. South Grade, I'm learning to like it more than I do. I mean, it's the twistiest road I've ever been on in my life, and I've done the Dragon. But the tight turns on South Grade are insane. if you're going at a normal sedate pace, it's fine. It is not scary at all. But the group that I ride with tends to be quite spirited, and when I first took South Grade after moving here to San Diego, I was not nearly as good a rider as I am now. Even though I've been riding for more than 20 years, I've been riding in Michigan, which is straight and flat and full of potholes and just generally awful. So I didn't really understand how to twisties. I didn't have that experience. And so it took me quite a few times going up and down South Grade to really get even remotely comfortable with it. And now, I'm scraping pegs and all that good stuff. But it's still a little bit stressful on a big heavy bike like the GS. I haven't done it on the KTM yet, and I probably won't now that I've aired down the tires, and given that these are not great pavement tires, they're Pirelli MT21s that came with it stock. They have a very weird turn-in profile. They're kind of square, so you'll start to lean, it's fighting, then all of a sudden it drops in. Not a big fan of that, and I've noticed since I aired it down that they do wander a little bit. They feel a little squishy, oddly enough. So off to my right here, this is Palomar Mountain. It's a huge, giant mountain, but the entrance that I am going to is all the way on its other side. So it takes a good half hour or so, almost 45 minutes maybe, to get over to Nate Harrison from where I live. And then going up Nate Harrison might take half hour, 45 minutes, I'm not sure. Barring shenanigans. And then, turn around, come down East Grade, and head home. All in all, it probably takes about 2 hours, which is amazing, because when I was living in Mission Valley in San Diego, it took almost an hour and a half just to get to frickin' Palomar or anywhere out here. I really, really am happy that I moved to the mountains, even though it's hot as hell lately. Much hotter than it would be in Mission Valley. Wow, that's a bumpy section there. it's so worth it because everything's right here. I live on one of the most popular motorcycling roads. I live on it. It's ridiculous. I was talking to the cowboy last night about this sense of imposter syndrome, and that's something that one of my favorite motorcycle vloggers named Everride recently talked about in one of his videos. And it's not the sort of thing you'd expect to hear, from a motorcycle dude who's absolutely awesome at what he does. He's one of my favorite YouTubers to follow because of who he is. I mean, he rides really cool rides. He lives in Colorado, and it's just spectacular, all the roads he gets to ride on. But I subscribed because I watched his backcountry discovery route video, and that was what got me, the beautiful scenery. But I also liked his commentary and the way his mind worked. His laugh is fantastic, and so I came for the motorcycle and the rides, and I stayed for Tyler himself because he's great. He's compassionate, he's kind, he's civil and sweet, and a hell of a rider, and very knowledgeable about the sport. And it's just a pleasure to watch his videos, all of them. So he came out with this fairly long episode about how he feels like he doesn't deserve any of it. He thinks he's a piece of shit. He doesn't deserve his family, his house. He certainly doesn't deserve to be a YouTuber as successful as he is. And it's always comforting to me to see other people who struggle with that. Because Jesus, fire truck. Because I do every day. I have no idea how lucky I am, or how I got to be this lucky to live where I do here in Southern California, have a job that lets me largely ride when I want to, within reasonable bounds. I get to travel when I want to. Of course, the trade-off is I don't have any days off. I haven't had a day off since 2011 or 2012 when I started my own business. So even if I'm traveling, I'll get up in the morning, I'll do my work, I'll go do my thing, I'll try to check in, at least once or twice during the day, and then before I go to bed at night, I make sure everything's taken care of again. It's not a bad gig. It's an amazing job. I love it. I love my boss. It's a great team that I work with. All four of the other people that work at this company. I'm very lucky. I now have a house in the mountains that I'm renting. I have this amazing man in my life. I have two utterly fantastic motorcycles that I get to ride here. I have an awesome riding club that I'm part of, full of amazing people. It's like I'm kind of living the dream, and I don't feel like I've done anything at all to deserve that. And so I struggle with that a lot, but I try to just enjoy it and try not to worry, oh my God, it's a trap, the other shoe's gonna fall, what am I gonna do when I lose my job, or what am I gonna do when XYZ happens? Even if there's no indication that anything like that's gonna happen, I've learned over the course of my life, thanks Mom, that anything that makes me happy is going to get taken away from me, one way or the other. And sometimes that happens, sometimes life sucks, but it's not always a guarantee. And so what I'm trying to work on practicing is just being appreciative and grateful and present in the moment, and not worry about what's going to happen that's completely out of my control. That's hard for an only child who is prone to anxiety. An only child of a mother with borderline personality disorder who is also a psychologist in private practice with a genius IQ. A little glimpse into my personal past there. So it's part of the reason why I've had the kind of online presence I have since 1994 is to reach out to people and to develop a connection with those people. To try and help people understand that they're not alone, in their troubles and their fears and their insecurities and their issues and their problems, their shame. It's not worth hiding it. It's worth, supporting each other and opening up and being there for each other. And I never learned how to do that. I had no idea what that was even like until my last job. I was a supervisor at a web hosting company, and my team was comprised almost entirely of 20-something kids who were just amazing human beings. Everybody bitches about millennials and how they're going to ruin the world, but these are human beings that saved me from myself. They showed me what it's like to have a support network, to talk about things, to support each other, to be vulnerable, to be open. And those are all things that I was terrified my entire life without even realizing it. I've always said I'm not afraid of anything except sharks and burning alive, which, are pretty reasonable fears to have, all things considered. But I did not think about being afraid of the entire spectrum of human communication and relationships, which I absolutely was. And that's really hard to overcome. But these kids, they role modeled that kind of behavior for me. And I'm happier for it. I'm a better person for it. It was this great sort of symbiotic relationship between me and my team and the team and the other team members. We all helped each other. And I'd never experienced anything like that in my entire life. It had probably been all around me my whole life, but I just wasn't able to see it, or I wasn't ready to see it. But it was most definitely not something that was present in my childhood in my tiny little hometown in Michigan. Being an only child, having socially weird parents didn't help. So I'm exceptionally grateful. Why do I smell brakes? Okay, there we go. I'm exceptionally grateful to those kids, and I'm still in touch with most of them, even though I've moved out here, for helping me get through that, those fears and lack of openness in my life. This dude is cooking his brakes. Holy crap, this is choking. This is another stupid thing. Don't do this. Don't be like me. Tell people where you're going. Sometimes I don't want to necessarily hound people with, hey, I'm going here, hey, can you help keep track of me, even though I know that he especially would certainly be happy and willing and happy to do that. I think also part of it is I don't want him to try and talk me out of it. So if I don't ask, or if it's not so much asking, he certainly can't deny me permission to do what I want to do, but if I don't say, hey, I'm going to go do this, he doesn't have the opportunity. His brakes are smoking. Holy shit. Wow, that's not okay. Good luck, buddy. Glad you're almost down the hill. So was I saying? Oh, but so he can't be disappointed or try to talk me out of things, and I'm a coward. I admit it. I cannot wait to not be behind this truck. Holy crap! I feel like I'm developing cancer as I sit here. This morning, actually, never mind. See, if I had two brain cells rubbed together, I would drop back like a mile so that my eyes were not burning. So there's going to be no passing this dude until fairways past the roundabout. I hope he doesn't go off the same roundabout exit as I'm gonna. That would be handy. God. I don't know if that's showing from the video, but there's just blue brake smoke pouring off of that dude's rear brakes. How to drive in the mountains, man. Use lower gear. One of the other things that I was talking about in the video that I have to scrub was why motorcyclists stand up. And I'll show you right here. It's a little bit hard on the KTM because it's so light that any movement is just super magnified. So when you stand up on a motorcycle, it could be for one of many, many reasons. It's not dangerous inherently. It's not hard. And there's a lot of practical reasons why it's a good thing to do sometimes. A lot of cars, I think, probably feel like the motorcyclist is trying to show off. Look at me, I'm so cool, look what I can do, I'm such a good rider, look at me standing up. Look at me meerkatting, as I like to call it. And while that might be true, for some riders sometimes, that's not always the case. A lot of times it's because my butt hurts or I want to stretch my legs without getting up off the bike. Sometimes I'm hot and I want more airflow, especially in the GS. This whole area here is covered up by the windscreen and the other components of the bike. And I don't get a lot of air on me, and so if I stand up, there's more air flowing through my jacket, which is nice in hot weather. It could be because I can't see something. Squirrel. And standing up sometimes will let me see, not in this case because the truck ahead of me is super tall, but if there's just a normal car or truck in front of me, if I stand up, I can usually see over that car. Or if I want to see over those bushes, what's behind the bushes? Oh yeah, I can see that. And there could be a huge safety improvement when I can see farther because, if I smell brakes, for example, and there's a car in front of me and I can't see what's ahead of that car, if I pop up and see, oh my gosh, there's a traffic jam a half a mile ahead, that gives me more opportunity to stop safely and give the people behind me a chance to stop safely, because on a motorcycle, we can stop, speaking of which, practically on a dime because we're so light. And the brakes are over-engineered a lot of times. Oh, good, he's not going the same way. Good luck to you, man. But, if I can give the people behind me more time to realize that I am stopping, that keeps me safer, it keeps them safer, less risk of accident. So if you see us standing up, don't judge, don't assume. We're just out here trying to survive, man. And almost every time I'm on the bike, somebody does something stupid or outright rude and intentional that puts my life at risk. Sometimes I do something that puts my life at risk, other than just being on a motorcycle on public roadways. And so it's all about risk mitigation. I try not to be a total asshole when I ride. I do sometimes pass on double yellows if it's safe. Okay, I often pass on double yellows if it's safe. Because the double yellow rules a lot of time, or the double yellow marks, are for cars or for, laden trucks. It's the safest thing for the lowest common denominator, right? The slowest traffic. But as a motorcycle, I can pass faster because I can accelerate more quickly. I'm more agile. I can dip in and out of traffic much more quickly. And so it's generally safer for us to pass. Even on a double yellow, right now, if I could pass safely in some circumstances before that curve comes up, I try not to do it before curves because there's a risk there for sure. If you're going around a blind curve, you never know what's on that other side. And so, 9 times out of 10, you might be fine. Maybe there's no oncoming traffic. But that one time, the consequences are dire if you fuck it up. So I try very hard not to be a total asshole. I don't, flip people off when I ride. Typically, I've given a car driver the finger 3 times in my entire riding career. And 2 of those times have been in the last year. One time was last week when a truck like the one ahead of me literally tried to kill the entire group of people I was riding with. That was another story that I told on the scrap video that I'll go into another time. But it doesn't pay to be an asshole, because if I were to pass somebody and flip them off and ride really super aggressively and be a jerk, who knows? 2 miles down the road, I might have an accident, and maybe they're the first ones to arrive on the scene. Are they more likely to stop and help if I was nice and waved to them, or at least was civil? Or are they going to stop and render assistance to the person who flipped them off, rather than laughing at them and being on their way?